baby. Whew, bless you. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today is a very special video. Today I'm going to tell you guys about my labor and delivery story. Now initially I was going to vlog it. I did begin to vlog it, but you know, too much went on in the process, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you all about it. Now I do have some notes with me so I don't go off topic or, you know, lose track of anything, so bear with me, y'all. So my original due date was Thursday, March 26th, and I had my last OB appointment that Tuesday, so 2 days before I was supposed to give birth. Now the doctor checked me for dilation. I was only 1 centimeter dilated and I was due in 2 days. So she went ahead and scheduled for me to be induced the following Monday, March 30th at our local hospital. And you know, I didn't think much about it then. You know, I was actually kind of glad because the baby was already going to be past due at that point and a lot could go on after the 40-week mark. So yeah, I was actually looking forward to being induced if baby was not here before then. Now following the date of my induction, me and hubby walked in the park every night up until that day for like 30 to 45 minutes just to get things going. We read somewhere that, you know, it can help bring on labor, so we tried that and obviously it didn't work. So within those few days, we were pretty much just nesting and setting up any last minute stuff for our baby. Now, unfortunately, with everything that's going on in the world right now, our hospital only allows us, well, myself and one other guest, and that guest has to stay throughout my hospital stay. There's no swapping out, just that one person. So of course, obviously it was gonna be my hubby. Now, I did feel bad that my family couldn't be there like Dad wanted to, so I invited them over the Monday of my induction. I invited them over to our place that morning so we can have some lunch, you know, last minute lunch and say our goodbyes and all that and well wishes. So after that, we went ahead and got ready, went to the hospital. The hospital, luckily, was only 10 minutes from where we live, so like 4:45 we left the house, got there on time. They checked me in, got me to my room. I changed into my hospital gown. The nurse on duty came in, introduced herself, and you know, me and hubby just chilled a little bit until they were ready to start everything. So the nurse hooks up 2 monitors to me, one for my heart rate, one for my baby's heart rate. They start an IV in my hand and hook it to I guess their contraction reader machine. So we're gonna call this nurse number 1. She came back, checked me for dilation, and I was only 1.5 centimeters. So from my last OB appointment a week ago till that day, I had only dilated 0.5 centimeter, so yeah. So nurse number 1 explains to us that she's going to start me off with Cervidil to ripen up my cervix. Basically what Cervidil is, it's hard to explain, but it looks like something tied to a tampon string, something hanging off of a tampon string, and they put it inside you as if they were putting in a tampon. It is medication and it's supposed to help efface you and maybe dilate you a little bit, I believe. And she explained that that's going to go in for 12 hours. So when they start that the following morning, they're going to take it out and start the Pitocin. So after explaining all that, she leaves. So me and hubby chill, we eat dinner and everything. And then nurse number 2 comes in and she introduces herself, tells us that they switch shifts. And she goes on to say that she'll be back in 12 hours to check to take out the Cervidil. Now, mind you, nurse number 1 had not started the Cervidil. She just told us what it was. And she said that she'd be back to start it. Nurse number 2 apparently didn't get this information from nurse number 1, because then hubby asks, okay, so when do we start the Cervidil? And then nurse number 2 was like, well, nurse number 1 said she started it already. So she leaves real quick, I guess, to go check and see what the deal is. Comes back and says, oh, there was a misunderstanding. We did not start it, so I'm going to go ahead and get you started on it. So you mean to tell me, okay, because 12 hours later is when it comes out. So in my head, so I'm a bit irritated now because I'm like, okay, so I would have been sitting here for 12 hours, nothing going on. They would have came in and realized they didn't even start it yet. Wow. So nurse number 2 does insert the Cervidil inside me, and it does hurt. It feels like her whole hand went up my vagina, so yeah, that hurt. So she gets that in there, explains to me that I'm gonna start having contractions soon. It's gonna feel like a mild period cramp. Okay, cool, I can handle, you know, a period cramp. So once she leaves, me and hubby finish dinner and we fall asleep. So, oh, she put the Cervidil in, by the way, around maybe 8 p.m. So I want to say around 11 p.m. I wake up in some mild pain. The contractions have begun, so at that point it does feel like that mild period cramp that she talked about. So I want to say maybe an hour passed and the contractions start getting a little stronger. At that point it feels like a bad period cramp. So nurse number 2 injects some type of pain relief medication into my IV. and it didn't help much. I was still in pain, not as worse as before, but the pain was still there. It just made me feel kind of fuzzy, so to take my mind off the pain, but the pain was still there. So I drifted off a little bit, and I believe I woke up around 5 a.m. This time I was in excruciating pain. The contractions, they were closer together now and more intense. Like, I even started crying, and I never cried. That's how bad the pain was. It felt like someone was just squeezing, like worse than a period cramp at this point, like squeezing on my uterus or something. I was no longer having fun. At that point, I was over it. I was just in pain and miserable at that point, and I had to wait till 8 a.m. for them to come in and take out the Cervidil. Oh, I called the nurse on duty as well for another round of medication. She came in, gave me the medicine. Once again, it did not help. So yeah, I had to bear with that pain for like another 2.5 hours. So once 8 a.m. rolls by, a new nurse comes in, which is nurse number 3. And she introduced herself as well, removes the Cervidil. Now, I honestly can't remember if it hurt when she removed it or not. But yeah, she removed the Cervidil and leaves and comes back and starts setting up the room for delivery. So she lets me shower and I have breakfast. Mind you, I'm still having contractions, but after she removed the Cervidil, they're not as bad. They're tolerable again, so cool. I was able to eat me a little breakfast before we got started. Now, once I'm settled and everything, nurse number 3 explains to us that if I'm dilated enough, they're gonna start the Pitocin. Now, Pitocin is a medication that it brings on the contractions even stronger, which in turn helps to dilate you, well, pretty much quickly. And it's administered through an IV as well. So at this point, she does check me for dilation. I am barely 2 centimeters dilated, she says. Now, I have to be right at 2 in order for them to administer the Pitocin. So she says that she may have to go ahead and get the start another round of Cervidil. We wait another 12 hours and see if it can, dilate me by 0.5 centimeter again. A process I did not really want to go through again because it meant longer time in the hospital. But then she's like, you know what? Let me go ahead and call your doctor and see what she would like for me to do. So she leaves, maybe comes back less than 10 minutes later and says, okay, we're gonna go ahead and start the Pitocin. And I'm like, thank you. So she hooks that up and everything, and it's administered through the IV as well. And all that's pretty much going inside of me intravenously and kickstarting the labor. Now, maybe an hour into the Pitocin, the contractions come back stronger again. This time they're closer together. They come every maybe 7 to 10 minutes and last over 40 seconds. And it's just, oh my goodness, you guys, when I say that, it's the worst pain I've ever felt in my life, especially when you can feel a contraction coming on. That was oh my goodness. Woo, it's not something I want to go through again. At one point, I had a contraction that made me cry out to the point where I could not breathe. Like, I literally almost jumped out the bed because I couldn't breathe. I was struggling. So hubby, he gets all scared and jumps up and rushes outside and says, hey, we need a nurse. She's in pain. We need a nurse. So the nurse comes in, calms me down, and tells me to just take deep breaths through them. Just breathe through them and I'll be okay. I try. And I think what made it hurt so much is that I was lying in bed the whole time, trying to fight through the pain. I should have got up and walked around, but I wasn't thinking straight. I was in pain. I just wanted to lay there and get it over with. So after my little episode, the nurse checks me for dilation. This time I am 4 to 5 centimeters dilated, and I don't know exactly. Well, they started the Pitocin around 9 a.m., closer to 10, and I think around 11-ish is when I started having the bad contractions. So between 10 o'clock when they started the Pitocin, I was, barely 2 centimeters dilated. Now, she checked me for a dilation after the Pitocin around, I want to say noon. I want to say right at 12. And I was already 4 centimeters dilated already. You guys, when she stuck that hand in me to check for dilation, I cried again because at this point, everything hurts. So she asks me, do you want the epidural now? And I say, yeah. So maybe 30 minutes later, the anesthesiologist and I want to say she was a trainee, and a trainee come in to administer the epidural. Now, let's talk about an epidural. So the epidural is supposed to block the pain from the waist down during the laboring and delivery process. I've heard so many horror stories about epidural, how it hurts when it's administered, how if they, it could lead to permanent damage and this and that. So I was already tensed up from the horror stories. All I was waiting for was that pain that was supposed to happen. So I was hunched over like this. My arms were on hubby's shoulders and he was standing in front of me. He could see what was going on. I obviously couldn't because it was happening to my back. So the doctor starts the process, and Honestly, throughout the whole process, all I felt was a little pinch from them doing the numbing shot. After that, I didn't feel anything throughout it all. I think it lasted I think it took them 20 minutes to administer it. Once again, like I said, he had a trainee, and it seemed like he was showing her how to do it, and so she did it and like messed up on something, so they had to redo something over again. Yeah. Hubby says there was a lot of blood involved, and he almost fainted, so he had to go sit down, and one of the other nurses, she came and took over, and I held onto her shoulders. So like I said, after that initial pinch, that initial sting, it felt like literally somebody taking their 2 little fingers and doing this, and that's it. That's all I felt, and I was waiting on more pain, because once again, I heard so many horror stories, so I was waiting on more pain, but honestly, for the entire 20 minutes, I didn't feel anything else, so I was just tensed up for no reason. Now the hardest part was, I was having the contractions throughout it. So the hardest part was trying to remain still, but I had to, so yeah. So after they administered the epidural, they helped me lay, one of the nurses helped me lay back in bed. I had to lay kinda on my side because apparently the epidural, it has to work on one side and then work on your other side. So I was leaning on one side for maybe 10 minutes, and then they flipped me over to my other side another 10 minutes. That way the medicine goes throughout both sides equally, so I won't feel any pain. And I believe after that is when I could no longer feel the contractions. It was amazing. I was no longer in pain, but I couldn't move either. From the waist down, I was pretty much paralyzed. I could only move my arms and my neck, so yeah. So at this point, me and hubby already figured out how to read the contraction monitor. He was looking at it, and you can basically see whenever you're gonna have a contraction, the lines are like, when you're having a contraction, the line it's like a big line, like a big line, and then it's straight and then big again. So I was pretty much having big contractions throughout it, but once again, I couldn't feel it because I had the epidural. So he was looking at it, he was like, wow, you're having strong contractions. And I was like, well, too bad I can't feel it. So eventually I took a nap, and he went down and got himself something to eat. And what woke me up was the crowning pain. So pretty much with each contraction, the baby was moving further down into the birth canal. So yeah, unfortunately, the epidural did not block out that pain. That pain I felt. So at one point, the nurse comes in, and I asked her, am I supposed to feel, you know, the pressure down there from, I guess, the crowning? She says, yes, you are. So with that being said, she checked me again. It was probably around or after 4 at this point, and I was already 8 centimeters dilated. Like, it surprised me how much progress I made in so little time. So I group chat my best friends and let them know, you know, what's going on and that baby's almost here. I'm 8 centimeters, and they all just text back, oh, we can't wait. But the thing is, unfortunately, you know, I do gotta wait till I'm 10 centimeters dilated exactly for them to start the whole pushing process. And it sucks because I can feel the pressure getting stronger with each contraction. It feels like I have to take the biggest boo-boo in the world. That's exactly how that feels, pressure and everything. So not too long after, maybe around like 5:10ish, a little after 5, I felt that sudden urge to push. So I call in the doctor, well, not the doctor, the nurse, and I tell her to check me. I'm like, I think it's time, please check me, because I feel like this baby's about to come out. So she checks me and all, and she says, wow, you are 9.5 centimeters dilated. I'm like, come on. So she leaves again. I'm stuck playing the waiting game. So a little bit of time passes, and all of a sudden, I don't know, something about this one contraction, it got me. This one actually hurt. Like, I could feel pain with this one. So as it was passing, I feel the baby pushing down even further, and I literally howled out in pain. I didn't even have to call the nurse. Next thing I know, the nurse comes in, the doctor comes in. Now during the OB appointment, they have you meet a bunch of different doctors, and one of them will be delivering your baby. And this particular doctor, she was one of the ones I met during my OB appointment. So lo and behold, she's there, and she does recognize me. So they come in, they begin, they help put my legs in the stirrups because I can't move. And hubby comes over to my side, and we are ready to begin pushing. So she tells me with each contraction I'm gonna push, and she'll let me know when. And the way I was supposed to position myself is I had my legs in the stirrups, right? So I had to like hold on to, while it was in the stirrup, I had to like hold on to both legs and tilt my head forward with my chin to my chest and push. And that was the pushing position. So she was gonna tell me, you know, when to push, of course. So as they begin, she's like, okay, here goes the contraction. It's a big one. Get ready to push. And when she says push, I push, and I also kind of yell out in anticipation of pain, but there's no pain. I forgot, I did get the epidural. So there's actually no pain, surprisingly, just pressure. So I'm like, oh, okay, I got this. So with each push, it's just the baby coming out, basically. On the third push, the nurse says, oh, she's almost here. I see the head. I see the head full of hair. And I get happy. I'm like, oh, she has hair. Now, they say when you have heartburn during pregnancy, your baby's going to have a lot of hair. Surprisingly, I didn't have any heartburn during pregnancy. To be honest, I don't know what heartburn really feels like. So I don't think I had any, but yeah, had a baby with a head full of hair. So when we get down to the last push, the doctor tells me, okay, this is the final push. I see her, and the shoulder's coming out, so you will feel pain with this one. I'm sorry, be prepared. So yeah, I'm mentally prepared for that part. Now, as I do that final push, and she instructs me and I do that final push, I cannot remember if there was pain or not. This last part happened so quickly. I did yell out again, once again in anticipation of pain, but I can't remember if it hurt or not. I don't think it did, but it just happened so fast. And with that final push, the baby came out and they like placed her on my chest. And I just look at her and I'm like, oh my gosh. She has the biggest eyes, and she's so long and skinny. She wasn't crying yet, but she was alert. She had her eyes open, just. But then when they take her to clean her and all that stuff, I finally hear her crying, and I'm like, okay. So while they're cleaning her and getting all the fluid out of her and everything, hubby calls my mom. He puts her on speakerphone. You can just hear the baby crying in the background, and she's all happy. She goes and gets my grandma and my sister, my brother, everybody. I can hear them just like shouting in joy over the phone. So they finally bring me back my baby for me and hubby to love on her and stuff. And I'm just so in awe of this little human that came out of me. We're just loving on her and everything. Meanwhile, the doctor's trying to get out my placenta. They say you delivered the placenta as well, but what she did, she just I felt a tugging sensation. She was just like tugging at it, I guess. And she was just tugging back and forth, and she just instructs me that she's taking out the placenta. So she's tugging back and forth, and I think after about like 3 minutes of doing so, the placenta comes out. So her way of doing it is she like basically pulled it out of me instead of me delivering it. I'm sorry, I had to go get my baby. She finally woke up. Say hi. Hey mama. Hey mommy's pretty girl. So yeah, she pulled that out of me, and once again I didn't feel anything. And once again we go back to loving on our baby, me and hubby, and then I notice now that she's sewing me up. So I asked her, did I tear real badly? She said I had a 2nd-degree tear, not to worry too much about it. It'll heal in a couple of weeks, and she said the stitches dissolve on its own anyway. So everybody finally clears out, and they let us have our skin-to-skin moment. And right after that, another nurse comes in, and it's pretty much finally time for us to get out of the delivery room and into the recovery room. So this nurse, she helps me out of the bed because, I obviously can't move because the epidural is still in me, and helps me to the restroom. Now I look back, as I'm getting out of the bed, I kind of look, and there is like a pool of blood inside the bed. Yes, mama, there was. But there's a pool of blood in the bed, and I'm just like, wow, I lost so much blood. So she takes me into the restroom and tells me to pee. I took the longest piss in history, like no joke. Like I guess it was all the fluid coming out of my body and everything, but it was the longest piss ever. So after that, she like half-asses cleans me up. And after the piss, they give me these the postpartum underwear as well as some postpartum pads. Now the postpartum underwear is like mesh and it's loose. It's not secure at all. But the pads that they give me were like super big, like real big. But it definitely helped with the bleeding and everything. The bleeding is something else. And then she puts a band on me on our way to the recovery room, pretty much stating that until I've went to the restroom with assistance from a nurse twice, and they see that I'm able to move on my own, I cannot get out of bed. I am a fall risk. So now we're in the recovery room, and I spent about 2 days there. Hubby stayed with me the entire time. So we're there for 2 days, just learning a lot, just the lactation specialist visited us, made sure she was latching on well, and just learning everything we could as new parents. Like the hospital staff really helped out a lot. All the nurses, the doctor as well. And the unfortunate part for me is, you know, after all that, I just wanted to rest, but I probably got no more than 2 hours of sleep at a time because once again, nurses are constantly coming in, and on top of that, baby's crying. So it was a very tiring 2 days, but it was worth it because once again, we learned a lot. And of course, they just made sure that everything was okay and good to go. But you guys, childbirth is definitely an experience. It's so surreal. Like, it's like you have this human being inside you, you love them already, do everything for them, you know, in preparation of them. And then once they finally come out, it's like, oh my goodness, you're who I've been waiting for 9 months. It's amazing, it really is. I'm happy, her dad is happy, and we're just ready to take on this new role in our lives. And I think we're doing pretty good so far. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here because everything after now is postpartum. And I'm considering doing a postpartum video as well, but let me know in the comments if you are interested in that. But yes, that is my childbirth experience. It was an amazing 9 months. You guys, to be honest, I feel like I had the most wonderful pregnancy ever. I do. You hear about the negatives here and there. The positives I have outweigh any negative. Like, I had plenty of support. Everyone was so happy, so helpful. I couldn't have asked for anything better, honestly. And the best part was just her dad helping me out throughout all aspects of my pregnancy and always coming to the appointments with me. Like, he was just as excited as I am. Support really is everything, because your body goes through so much, so many changes. So yeah, I really appreciated all the support I've gotten throughout my pregnancy and throughout the delivery. But finally, that's my labor and delivery story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned definitely for upcoming videos. Okay, so my baby girl's getting aggy. She's like, Mommy, I want some attention too. So I'm gonna go ahead and end here. But thank you for watching. Comment, subscribe, and stay tuned.